the moment, we've got a big buildup in war language at all different kinds of levels, as well as a hardening of the language, if you will, relative to the Israelis and Iran, and we're rapidly approaching a critical point. The Israelis are now talking to back up our projections. By the way, we go and sample current publications that are available freely on the Internet. And the Israeli position is now taken and ratcheted up into a very specific level of language that indicates that we're within a 6-month window, and that they recognize that is also held within the data itself in terms of how they are talking about time in internal Israeli publications. So basically the message is that the Israelis think that they have only a very limited time to deal with an Iran issue, and the legitimacy of the Iran issue to them is neither here nor there in terms of our discussion, but they will do something within 6 months or not do anything at all. And the odds favor at this point, given who the characters are that are running the Israeli war machine, that they probably will attack. And also, by the way, we've got samples from Farsi, from Iranian stuff, and the Iranian archetypes are showing that they actually feel that they're within 30 to 40 days of being attacked. A curious juxtaposition there.
Well, I do know the Russians have sent the Iranians a special defense system of surface-to-air missiles to guard against attacks from the skies, from the Israeli F-16s and probably soon the F-35s. So I think certainly both sides are ratcheting up. We're going to open up the phone lines here. You can call us at 1-800-313-9443. And let's go out to Guy on line 1 from Arkansas. Hi, Guy. What's on your mind?
Yes, good evening, folks.
Good evening.
Great to have a great guest like Cliff.
We can leave all that aside, dude. Just jump right to it.
I understand, but you're such a great fresh air for alternative points of view. It's fantastic. Okay, my question to you here is about that swirl over in Norway. I kind of see that might have been a potential weapon. And then it looked like there was a UFO above it that shined a light down on it and killed the vortex in there.
And Cliff, as we went to the break, our previous caller had asked about a vortex in Norway knocked down by a UFO. What's that all about?
Well, this is that giant swirly thing that occurred when Obama was up there. You know, it's a meaningful coincidence in my view. And Guy is quite correct in is focusing on that, because I was quite taken by that. If you see the pictures, go to spaceweather or .com. I think they've got them there, but they're all over the net. And it's sort of like giant swirly thing alert. Everybody pay attention here. I don't know about the UFO component of it, but indeed, at the middle of the vortex, at its point of maximum level of creation, it did the interior of it sort of disappeared. And the interesting thing well, let me back up. In current material reality that we're all inhabiting, almost everything is right-handed, not humans, but molecules at a chemical level. And for instance, we have most molecular structures curved to the right in our material world. Some do to the left, and they're rather unique, and they have interesting properties. And in fact, you'll see that with drugs. You'll see chemicals labeled as L-something. And the L refers to the fact that it has a left-handed twist. It usually makes it much more powerful, although its duration is of a lesser level. In any event, though, the swirly thing appeared to have this counter-rotational thing at the middle of it. And whether it was caused by a UFO or, in my opinion, was actually caused by the device that generated the giant swirly to begin with, the counter-rotation appeared to kill the middle of the swirly thing as it existed there and was displayed. And it may have been that someone was demonstrating to everybody in Norway and the rest of the planet that they had a very interesting capability. If we were to postulate that this was indeed caused by the Russian version of HARP, or their scalar weapon technology group, then it's basically saying to everybody, look, we actually created this little null zone where reality doesn't exist in the middle of this swirly thing, and it only took us a little few minutes, and it only took this amount of energy. And by the way, if you were to, for instance, fly a missile or an airplane or something into that null zone, it would also become null. That is to say, it would disintegrate, wouldn't exist. It actually appears on some of the infrared and other photos that are available out there that there was a no space, no time kind of condition created at the middle of that swirly thing for a few minutes.
So it seems to be a show of force. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Demonstration for our president.
Yeah. Because, see, here's the problem. The Russians and Chinese desperately don't want to attack the U.S. for various different reasons. Not the least of which is the economic harm to their own status, and then what they would have to deal with in the world that would exist afterwards. Nor do they really want a world war. And yet everything is progressing us along that path of inevitability as their analysts look out and see with the hardening of attitude of the Israelis versus the Iranians, the lies that are being spewed about their language involved, all of the hidden war going on, the attacks in South Ossetia, the moves against Russia, this whole great game being played by the Illuminati is getting a little bit blatant and wearing. I mean, in the sense of, it's just starting to irritate people. And so maybe they just took it up a notch and said, if you attack us or institute a world war with conventional weapons, we're not going to respond that way. We're going to respond with what we've got now, which is into this new subquantum kinetics or scalar or hyperdimensional, whichever way you want to think about it.
Similar to when the Germans built the Bismarck prior to World War I. Show of force. Okay, let's go out to the lines and welcome Henry from New Mexico on line 2. Hi, Henry. Welcome to the show.
How's it going, Cliff, and the other host? My name is Henry from Roswell, and I have a couple of questions, actually. You mentioned, Cliff, in your report something about the rural Southwest as being the last place to catch what's coming down the road in the sense of the economic and other disorders that are going to be happening here in this country. The other question the other thing I want you to address is I was recently in El Paso, and I saw a painting by a gentleman by the name of Murphy, and I couldn't help during this Christmas banquet, looking at the painting on the wall, that I said, that really looks interesting. It was a black interior disc with what looked like flames coming off it on the edges. And when I looked at the name of the painting, the way he had named it, he called it Black Sun. And we know that we have a minimum at this point in time where there are no black spots in the sun. When the sun enters its hyper-dimensional phase or starts reacting heavily, is there a good possibility the sun, in all its twisting, the magnetic fields, can turn completely black? Because, as you well know, in Scripture it says, in the last days, or in the end of the age, that the sun will turn black as sackcloth. And I'll take my answers off the air.
Okay, good. Very good call. Thanks, Henry.
Let's address Henry's first question. That was the Southwest. And indeed, there appears that the Southwest has some rather unique holes in the ground that are going to draw money its direction for a while. As the federal government and the powers that be fade in other areas, it should focus that way. So to a certain extent, outside of California, let's just define the Southwest as from California over to Texas and say north as far as mid-Utah. In that region, there are some things of interest in there that will continue to draw money from the Fed for a while. So it's one of the areas we saw hanging on the longest. As to the sun turning
Richard Soddard, just a comment on that. Richard Soddard has written books on this where he's talked about the fact that the government's currently engaged in the building of massive underground bases and tunnels. So that
may well be indeed part of the process by which money is drawn there. We know that that's the case in Colorado because you can track the rise in the cement costs as you get closer to their facilities. So yes, indeed, it may be that way that we have a relatively solid economy because of the black ops spending the last of their dollars. But that really, truly is going to be part of our problem, is that the economic stuff is going to hit the shadow government, and they're going to really find themselves in a twisted position where they've got all this free energy and the ability to, remake the economy, but yet can't afford to pay their people their salaries, that kind of thing.
Understood. Okay.
And then insofar as the sun, we needn't even speculate that the sun would go black because I have a tendency to agree with this view, but there's some speculation in the Russian literature that the magnetic bubble would be sent out towards us. As the magnetic sphere winds around the sun, it gets to the point where it gets just can't take anymore, and it explodes outward in 360 degrees in all directions, basically faster than the speed of light. So from our viewpoint sitting here on Earth, indeed the sun likely would turn black because there would be this magnetically light-preventing opaque mass between us and the sun until the magnetic sphere passed over us. Make sense?
Yes.
But the sun really wouldn't turn black, but as from our perspective, we couldn't tell the difference.
Exactly. Okay, let's go out to line 3 and welcome Jim from Texas on the line. Hi, Jim. What's on your mind?
Hello. Good program tonight. I have two quick questions. Number one, the magnetic sphere, when it explodes, will that trigger an EMP that could possibly take out everything electrical on the planet, possibly lasting for days. And number two, I believe the Illuminati are in panic mode. They've lost control of the situation. And I'll take your answers off the air. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the call, Jim. Cliff?
Yeah, Jim, you're quite correct about the second one. We also believe the powers that be, the Illuminati, are in panic mode and they're starting to freak out all over. The EMP pulse is rather interesting because you have to think of this as being layered. The magnetic bulge that comes out from the sun indeed will cause all kinds of havoc to the satellites and so forth and electronics on the surface of the planet. But then there's going to be two other ancillary effects. As the plasma within the middle of our planet rotates and causes the magnetism of the whole planet to rotate, a giant